May niluluto na raw na plano para patalsikin sa pwesto si Pangulong Duterte at ang mastermind daw nito ang dating U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines na si Goldberg. Base sa ulat ng Manila Times na isinulat mismo ng publisher nito na si Dante Ang, nag-iwan daw ng isang blueprint si Goldberg bago umalis ng bansa. Dito raw nakasaad ang ilan sa mga estratehiya para mapaalis sa pwesto si Digong. Isa na rito ang pagsisiwalat sa ilan umanong anomalya sa Administrasyong Duterte. Pati na ang pagkabigo nito tuparin ang mga pangako noong eleksyon. Plano rin daw ng Amerika na i-isolate ang Pilipinas sa pamamagitan ng pakikipag-alyansa sa mga karatig nitong bansa. Gusto rin daw nila na bawasan ang pakikipagkalakaran sa bansa para humina ang ekonomiya nito. Makikipag-alyansa rin daw sila sa mga politikong miyembro ng oposisyon. Hindi pa malinaw kung galing ang mga planong ito sa U.S. State Department ng Washington. Wala pang komento dito si Goldberg o ang U.S. Embassy.
Thank you.
So many questions and so little time.
Right.
When you go back to the U.S. after your stint here, which will finish, when is the new guy coming in?
He'll come in mid-November, somewhere around then.
Okay, so when you go back to so you spend the holidays in the U.S.?
Yes.
Will you make it in time?
Actually, I'll go home, be home in time to vote.
In time to vote? Okay, we won't ask you who you're voting for.
No, you can't do that.
Oh.
It's a secret ballot.
Yeah, we know. Okay, so when you go back to the U.S., I'm sure one of the things your friends, your family, people you work with will ask you, how did you find your stint as ambassador of the United States to the Philippines? What will your answer be, Mr. Ambassador?
My answer will be that this is a wonderful country with wonderful people, some of the most welcoming, nicest people that I've met. I've traveled from Tawi-Tawi to Ilocos Norte. It's a remarkable country. We have a remarkable relationship. We have a remarkable alliance. It's an important relationship between the two countries. It's being tested at the moment, but we want to, of course, work through those issues and remain friends and allies. So that's what I'll tell them. But that at its very basic level, the relationship between the peoples of the United States and the Philippines are really unbreakable. And we want that to continue. We also want to continue our military and security cooperation and our alliance. We want to continue our very strong economic ties, our people-to-people ties, our cultural and educational ties. But we can't obviously control all of that. You're a sovereign country. You have a new government that was elected, and so decisions on this side will play a very important role in that.
When you say we are a remarkable people, in your mind, what did you just say about the people?
I said it's a remarkable country.
The remarkable country,
Yeah.
the people.
The people are wonderful. The
Wonderful
people
people.
are welcoming and
Does that include
warm people.
Does that include President Duterte? That's a serious question, Mr. Ambassador.
Well, I have to say some of the things
that
because some of the things you've said have not been consistent with the great relationship that we have with the Filipino people. That's why I was laughing a bit.
Yeah. Great choice of words. Seasoned diplomat here this morning. Okay, Mr. Ambassador. So you heard the soundbite?
Yep.
Of what he said about what he said in China.
Right.
He said he was breaking military and economic relations with the United States.
Right.
He said, goodbye, my friend.
Right.
Still calls you friend. Still calls America friend. You notice? But he just said goodbye, my friend. So what's your reaction to that, Mr. Ambassador?
My reaction is we need further clarification about what that means. We haven't had any official notice about a decrease in our military relationship as of yet. I noted that the Secretary of National Defense at his confirmation hearings the other day said that he hadn't really had a discussion or didn't understand what the President's position will be on a lot of these issues, and that they would be presenting it to Cabinet. So if the Secretary of National Defense doesn't know, I certainly am not clear on the way forward.
Okay, you're talking about the Secretary of National Defense of America or of the Philippines?
No, of the Philippines.
Of the Philippines, Lorenzana.
Secretary Lorenzana said
Yes.
that at his confirmation hearing, that he didn't know. So if he doesn't, I certainly need further clarification as well. On the economic side, our ties are extremely close. You know, Mike, the largest private employer in the Philippines is an American company. The largest exporter in the Philippines is an American company. Well over 1 million people are employed by American companies here in the Philippines. The markets that are accessed around the world go through American banks. 43% of the remittances that come into the Philippines go through American banks. Many of them, much of that money originates in the U.S. from the Filipino-American community and Filipinos working in the United States. So we're all tied together. So I don't know what it means to separate economically. We need clarification what the president has in mind. But those are, of course, very serious matters. They're very serious matters for the Filipino people, and the statements are really, in many ways, inconsistent with the relationship that we've had for decades: the security relationship, the economic relationship, the people-to-people ties. You know, the relationship between our peoples now are so different than they used to be, because there are so many Filipino Americans who travel here every year, that visit their relatives, whose relatives go and visit them in the United States. It's really a different kind of relationship that's grown up, and this is 2016. We're not dealing with 20th century issues. We're dealing with issues that are worldwide: climate change and countering terrorism. We have a terrorism cooperation in the south of the Philippines that's very important for both countries. These things are mutually beneficial. So I really think we need to clarify, talk, and have constructive talks about what all this means. And I also know, Mike, that this is something that that the Filipino people support as well in terms of our relationship. I look at public opinion surveys and see that just the other day that 76% of the people have a great trust in the United States. So, you know, I think we need to talk through this and find out exactly what it means.
Okay, is this your way of saying that the signals are confusing?
Well, the signal and what is said.
You have the president saying one thing, and you have people like Secretary Lorenzana saying another thing, and other officials of the Philippine government, Mr. Ambassador?
What I'm saying is that we haven't gotten any official word on any of this. None of this has been transmitted to the United States government, to the embassy, or in Washington. So we need to get clarification about what this means. To date, they deal with public pronouncements by the president,
yes,
some of which are completely inconsistent with the kind of relationship that exists. So we need to clarify it.
Okay, in typical American fashion, we know that especially the Americans, especially the government, you do a lot of forward planning, Mr. Ambassador. So, are you gonna just sit by and watch the president of a long-standing ally and friend in this part of the world go slipping towards, never mind towards China or whoever, but away, farther from the U.S.?
Well, it's not our choice. We want to continue a very strong relationship. We have extraordinary links between the two countries, including assistance programs that, for example, built a road in Samar over the last few years, a 226-kilometer road in one of the poorest parts of the Philippines. We do community projects through that program, the Millennium Challenge Corporation. We work in health, in education. We send kids from Mindanao, Muslim kids, to the U.S. for a year of study, living with American families. We do all kinds of things together. And then there's that security relationship, which has helped underpin the rise of this region economically, has served the Philippines as it's growing at 5 to 7% a year. We have very strong relations with China because it's very important for both our countries. And we don't have any objection. In fact, we support good relations with China by all the countries in the region. But it shouldn't be a zero-sum game, in our view, in terms of pushing away the United States and the very fine relationship that we've had.
And if you had your way, Mr. Ambassador, how would you veer a friend and ally like the Philippines, I don't know if this is the right word, back towards the direction of the U.S.
Well,
in view of this, very long relationship we've had?
Mike, that's just the thing.
What do you mean that's just the thing, Mr. Ambassador?
There's nothing that's particularly off course, except for the pronouncements that I keep hearing And we haven't talked about this directly with the government about how they would like to change or how they would like to, in yesterday's language, separate. So I don't think that I can comment on something that hasn't yet happened.
So you're saying, Mr. Ambassador, if I may be excused, that in spite of all the rhetoric coming from the president, you do not see things between you don't see the relationship between America and the U.S. as off course.
No.
You don't see that. You don't see it that way.
Well, what I mean is that these statements are inconsistent with the kind of relationship that we've had. We haven't had any official notice that anything has changed in our everyday interaction with the Philippines, whether it's assistance, military cooperation, and until we do, we want to continue that relationship. But we can't. I can't say that we're not aware of what the president says. We're very much aware, and we think that it is inconsistent with that relationship that we've had, which benefits both countries. We'd like to keep it going, but you know, we can't say about what your policy will be. But we'd like to discuss it with you.
The president doesn't like America.
Well, you'd have to ask him that, but certainly his statements.
He's been saying
that's what
every opportunity he has. He says it, Mr. Ambassador.
Yeah, that's what he says, and well, that's his.
Well,
that is different than about 90% of the Filipino public, according to the Pew Foundation poll that was done in 2015, which showed that 92% of the Filipino population has a favorable view of the U.S. You know, I don't know how many people in this studio or upstairs where I just was with GMA, how many of you or your listeners have relatives in the United States, who've studied in the United States, who've visited the United States, and have very strong relations personally with our country. So, as I say, it's inconsistent with sort of what we know about the Philippine-American relationship.
Is that
so?
Okay. Is that
so? If that's what's going to happen, that's something for all of you to discuss. It's something for the Philippines to decide, but it should be done in a way that then discusses with us. It's not our choice. We want to continue. We have a very strong commitment to our mutual defense treaty. It is a solid and solemn commitment to the Philippines and the people of the Philippines with whom we have a tremendous relationship. If the President of the Philippines wants to change that, we'll discuss it with you.
Okay. Are you saying, Mr. Ambassador, is this your way of telling us this morning, Mr. Ambassador, that what the President says does not reflect what the majority, not all, majority, positive 66% trust rating of Filipinos to the U.S. You talked about Pew, and we're talking here about social weather stations. That's here in the Philippines. You've heard about SWS.
Yes, it was in the newspaper just the day before yesterday.
Positive 66%.
Right.
Is this your way of saying that President Duterte's rhetoric, President Duterte's very strong words against the U.S. are not reflective of what the majority of Filipinos feel about America and Americans?
I think you can answer that question better than I can.
Really now? Okay. So positive 66%.
Do you think so, Mike?
Well, that's what the survey's telling us, Mr.
Well,
Ambassador. We
can
go by the numbers.
From your personal experience, can you?
My personal experience. Ask Molly. So.
I know you're the interviewer, but you know, I'm sincerely asking: is that your experience that the Philippines want?
It's our experience. You know, Mr. Ambassador, for people in media like myself, okay, we don't. It's not that we are. It's not that we are too jaded, but you know, everybody's nice to us, and we're nice to everyone. The Americans, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Europeans, and everything. On a personal level, you're right. We have relatives in the U.S. We visit folks in the U.S. I have friends in the U.S. and they come over here too, a lot. Right. So
no, but I ask you that because I shouldn't be the one to tell you as a Filipino or your listeners as Filipinos what they think and what their president thinks. My point is that the United States, I represent the United States, and what I'm telling you is that the United States has a very strong commitment to the people of the Philippines, that we have a treaty alliance, we've had a long-standing friendship, and I think, you know, I mentioned to you at the beginning that my experience here over the last 3 years has shown that, and has shown the warmth and welcome of the people, not just to foreigners, which is a tradition here, but also to Americans. And I think it goes beyond polls. It goes to personal relationships. It goes beyond and it goes to the security and economic relationship that we have. That's why we need to clarify what the President has said and what that means for for policy and the future.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador, gut question here. Talking about the relationship between Americans and Filipinos. I don't know if this has reached the U.S. Embassy, this has reached your office, or your information people here, like headed by Molly and the rest in their office, that there's word spreading around that, uy, mahirap na kumuha ngayon ng visa sa U.S. Embassy. Uy, marami nang rini-reject ngayon sa U.S. Embassy simula nung nagalit si Duterte. Translated into English, hey, it's hard to get a visa to the U.S. now. Hey, the number of rejections to visa applications has increased. Starting when President Duterte started saying things against America. Now, how true is this, Mr. Ambassador?
Not at all. Not to my knowledge. It has nothing to do with the visas that are issued from the United States Embassy. You know, Mike, about 80% of the applicants for visas to the U.S. are approved. So there is this kind of urban legend that things happen and rumors go around.
Right, right.
And it's just not true.
You know, hey, we better apply now because they're starting to tighten up.
Well,
they're starting to be stricter now in giving visas to Filipinos
it's,
because of what our president is saying about the United States.
It's not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador. So, what's going to happen down the future? Any plans, if you're free to let us know, any plans of how to deal with the Philippines with a president who is very, very clearly and obviously anti-American?
We, you know, I don't want to seem like a broken record, Mike.
Okay.
But this is not our doing. This is not our doing.
We know that.
We want to
Yes.
continue this relationship.
Yes.
And if the people of the Philippines, through their democratically elected leaders, want to change that relationship, that's going to be a decision that you'll make. We'll discuss it. We'll see how we can change our relationship. I think in some ways our ties are unbreakable, regardless who is the president of the Philippines or the president of the United States. Because of that people-to-people relationship, I think those economic ties are very strong. So I think that in some ways we'll go on. But we're in an uncertain period, and we need some clarity about exactly what the position of the government is. We know what the rhetoric is. We know what the statements have been. So now we want to see exactly how that will translate into policy.
And talking about presidents, will it matter if it's going to be Trump or Hillary?
I think from our side, we've had 12 presidents during our alliance, and it hasn't changed considerably on our side. And I wouldn't expect it would.
You don't expect any significant difference?
Well, again, I think that things that happen here at the moment will have more of an impact than in the United States. We have a strong and abiding commitment to the security of the Philippines. We have a strong and abiding commitment to the economic development of the Philippines. We have a strong and abiding commitment to the people of the Philippines, especially because of the relationship between Filipino Americans and the Philippines and Americans here who are living here, a couple of 100,000, and their ties to the U.S. These are important links, Mike, and so we want to make sure, and we'll do our best to ensure their continuity. But and I'm sure that any new administration in Washington will do the same. But we've heard the statements. You replayed them this morning. We're going to seek clarification about what exactly that means for the future of, from the Philippine side of the security relationship, The economic relationship, as I say, I don't even know what that means to separate economically. We're tied to an international economy that is now global in its nature, that really can't be separated. The United States and China are so tied together, our economies. We're not separating, so I don't know what that really means. And so we need to have further clarification, whether that's just a pronouncement or whether that has practical implications. So that's what we need to do at the moment.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador, I don't know how you guys we're about to wrap up. I don't know how you guys do it in the foreign service of the U.S. government, but we have an incoming new ambassador.
Right.
He is Ambassador Korean American, is he?
Yes, Ambassador Sung Kim.
Sung Kim.
Right.
And where's he been posted before?
He was our ambassador to South Korea.
South Korea, okay.
He is Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the East Asia Bureau at the moment.
Okay, I don't know if you guys have a turnover period or a transition period, or where you do briefings and where you break in the new guy, or tell him what it's all about, to the Manila posting, etc., etc. What will you tell this new guy? Why do you answer me with your smile, Mr. Ambassador? What are you going to tell this new guy when when it's time to hand over the office to him?
Well, we're in constant contact now,
okay,
Mike, and
good.
He's going through briefings in Washington, as any ambassador does before they go out to the field. And what I'll tell him will largely not be repeated on DZBB, but rather in my private talks with him. But what I'll tell him is this, that I have found the Philippines to be a hugely friendly allied country to the U.S. during my stay, that the people are warm and they like Americans and they want Americans to be here and to interact with the United States as a friend and ally. And we're going through a period now where we have to see where this relationship is going because of the new government, and we need to work through those issues if we can. And that's what I'll tell them. But that at a human level, this is such a wonderful experience to be here. The Filipino people are wonderful people.
Are you also going to tell him to stay clear of the front gate of the embassy when there's a rally, so his clothes don't get splattered with red paint, and so he doesn't get hit by the batons of the police and get involved in a skirmish? You know that happened a couple of days ago.
I know.
In front of your embassy.
I know, and there were some very disturbing scenes that were shown
yes,
in
exactly.
fact, on American network television.
Oh, they showed it on American TV?
Oh, very much
Did they?
so, on the evening newscast in the U.S.
Yes.
And I think, unfortunately, it was also tied to some of what was described, at least in the shorthand in the American news, as kind of anti-American activity writ large.
Excuse me, Mr. Master. Are you saying the way it was presented on American TV, look what happened? There's this overrun the embassy, through red paint, got into a skirmish with the cops, and this is how strong they're anti-American now in the Philippines. Is that the impression that was created?
Here, it was all of about
by U.S.
all
media.
of about 30 seconds, Mike.
Yes,
so
I know.
Let me. That
Okay,
unfortunate scene was what prompted them to run the story. But in running the story, they also remarked that the demonstration was an anti-American demonstration for the United States to get out of the Philippines. Without, on television, you don't have, as in the written press, an explanation of what the groups were, that these groups always come to the United States Embassy to demonstrate, which is their right, it's their democratic right. But it was, in a way, tied with the current mood and what's going on in the Philippines, and it added, I think, an impression of the Philippines. That's the impression of the Philippines at the moment in the United States through the media. It's true in Western Europe, too. It's very tied to the counter-drug campaign and what's been going on with that. And that's the image that has taken hold in Europe, in the United States, in Australia, New Zealand, in Western democratic countries. And so I'm just saying that in showing it, it's sort of tied together and probably in the public imagination.
Okay, one of my closing questions, Mr. Ambassador, this morning is, you've been here 3 years, 4 years?
3.
3 years. Okay. Where would you place the relationship between our two countries when you first arrived in Manila as ambassador, and now that you're about to leave and go back to the U.S. to vote?
I arrived in Manila at an extraordinary time. It was just after Yolanda, and it had hit Leyte. I spent my first Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, in Leyte and with American forces who were working with the AFP to provide relief to the people of the Philippines. It was an extraordinary moment in showing how we come together, how our militaries work together with other countries as well to provide relief to the people of Leyte, to the people of Samar. And so that was the environment in which I entered. And then we had 2 visits from President Obama. We had an enhanced defense cooperation agreement that I was very proud to sign, and which will provide for more cooperation between our 2 militaries. And so these are the important things that happened during the first part of my stay. I'll be honest and say that in the last 3 months, a lot of what we've heard and seen has been difficult to the relationship. We're trying to work through it if we can, but we haven't, as I mentioned before, gotten any official word or notice about any of this. It's all out there through your good offices.
Through media. Okay, through media. Okay, Mr. Ambassador, and finally, you used the word. What was the word you used? Difficult.
I want to say one thing that's very important,
please,
Mike.
go ahead.
Which is that, I mentioned how the rebalance to Asia is very important to the United States. I said that on GMA a while ago. It's important because we recognize that the rise of China, the rise of Southeast Asia, is something that's very important for the future prosperity, well-being of the United States, and this is very much an Asian century, the rise of China economically and demographically, and we have important relations with China. What we're saying is that all the countries in this region should have good relations with China. It benefits us, it benefits you, but it shouldn't necessarily be a zero-sum game where you toss aside allies and friends in the process. We can work through these issues if it's of interest, and I think it's in the interest of the 2 countries, but that is something that I can't decide, or my country can't decide, my government can't decide on its own.
But we've heard several times it being said that the relationship will withstand and can withstand whoever is president of the Philippines,
right,
or whatever the president's position is regarding relations with America.
Well, I mentioned the
that
extremely
means
close.
In spite of everything, and bottom line, as of this morning, you're still upbeat about the future of Philippine-American relations, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, it's hard to be upbeat after after what you just played, but I'm upbeat because about the future of the relationship, because I know how important it is to the 2 countries. I know how important it is to the people of the Philippines, to the people of the United States. So I think it will go forward. It will persevere.
So, but you were saying it's hard to be upbeat after what you just heard.
Well, I'm
Goodbye and all.
I'm kidding a bit.
You're just like the president. He likes to kid a lot,
Well.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador. Now, finally, we are on...
Finally.
That's the Filipino way. Have you been to Filipino gatherings and parties? Lasts an hour. The last half hour is saying goodbyes. You better, Molly, you newly arrived relatively. You'll find that out. I don't know if you'll find it out the easy way or the hard way. It takes Filipinos half the time to say bye, bye, see you, bye, bye. Okay, and the other half is saying hello, hi. Oh yeah, I forgot the three parts, and the third part is eating. Okay, Mr. Ambassador, you're being heard all over the country. We're being streamed worldwide. We're on Facebook Live. We're on our audio streaming on our website. I'll give you a chance to do a little bit of showbiz here and say your goodbye to the people. Never mind the officials. Never mind government to government. Okay? We know that's your job, and we know you have the opportunity to do that. But this is people to people. Go ahead, Mr. Ambassador.
People to people, I'll say thank you, salamat to all the people of the Philippines who've been so warm and welcoming, all the friends I've made here, the friends that I'll stay in touch with. It's been a wonderful experience to be here. It's been an honor to be here for my country, but on a personal level, to know so many friends that will remain. And so I've traveled around the country and seen the beauty of the beaches, the mountains up in Benguet, which I love, up in Baguio. And so I'll miss a lot of those things. And as a diplomat, I'll keep them with me, as I have on my previous postings, but this will have a special place. I've served on 4 continents, Mike. And the people here are extraordinary and have been extraordinarily warm to me and to my colleagues, and that's what I'll remember most, and I'd like to thank them for that.
Okay, and we thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your time this morning, for
And for the interrogation.
And what is this interrogation? Earlier you jumped the gun on me by saying so you can trap me, and now you're saying you're calling this an interrogation? Wait till I hand you over to the next guy. Thank you very much for dropping by Huling Hirit. You came from a program called Unang Hirit.
Right.
Una means first.
Right.
Huli means last.
Right.
They are the una,
Right.
we are the last.
I see.
So mga kapuso, ang papatapos na ang termino, I'm saying about to finish his term, na embahador ng Estados Unidos, si Ambassador Philip Goldberg. Mr. Ambassador, safe travels back and happy voting, and
Thank you very
advance
much.
happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Philip Goldberg, Ambassador of